we kind of let. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday book celebration, our book launch. I've had 2 months off, which has been nice, but I have deeply missed our good company. I'm Malika Albrecht, the founding editor of Redheaded, Stepchild, and tonight we're going to be celebrating with my fabulous, kind-hearted, amazing poet friend, Connie Post. It's the perfect one to come back to, and it'll be Broken Metronome. Very powerful chapbook. I am going to, just do a brief introduction, Connie, but I do want to turn straight over to you so that we can get to the poems.
Yeah.
And I know we also want to let people know that, we might be taking it slower than usual. Connie Post served as the first poet laureate of Livermore from 2005 to 2009. During that time, she wrote over 25 poems of occasion for civic events. She also created 2 really popular reading series. Post poems appear widely in magazines, and no doubt you've celebrated like I am when you get to see them somewhere. The American Journal of Poetry, Two River, Calyx, Dogwood, Comstock Review, River Styx, Crab Creek Review, and I could go on and on. Her first full-length, Floodwater, was published in 2014 by Glass Lyre Press and won the Lyrebird Award. Her chapbook, And When the Sun Drops, won the 2012 Aurorian Editor's Chapbook Prize. And the one that we got to celebrate first, I think I reached out to you like fangirling. You tolerated me so graciously. But her second full-length, Prime Meridian, was published by Glass Lyre Press right in 2020. So that's what began this series, was all the poems and all the poetry books that were being published during the pandemic. And since then, I have probably nearly daily, or at least weekly, had the gracious good company of Connie Post. I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm gonna spotlight you, girl.
All right. Malika, it's so great to be with you again. So we were a lot of you know that Malika and I had like an instantaneous connection. And so I'm very, very, very lucky to have her as such a good friend, and lucky to have all of you. I think everybody I know mostly really pretty well. So it's wonderful to have you here, and really wonderful to have my 2 sisters here, 2 of the 3. And I wanted to say before I start, my sister Paula Golightly, who's in the Zoom meeting here on our Hollywood Squares, she did this amazing cover. So for many years, we wanted to collaborate in some way, and there was whatever just didn't work out for whatever reason. So it was a really neat project to be able to work with her, and she's a very professional artist. So even if I had my little like, oh, can we change this or do that or whatever, it was a really great experience. Before I start, because I always forget to do this, I'm going to put in the chat how you can get a hold of me, which most of you know. But I also wanted to put Paula's website. So you can email me if you want a signed copy of Broken Metronome, or go to Glass Lyre Press. But then if you want to know more about Paula's work, which is really stunning nature work, her website's there too. So, and you guys can ask questions about that if you want. So most of you that know me know that I had a double retinal detachment, which was brutal. And it's going to take a long time for me to recover. And I know it looks normal, but not seeing normal at all. So I have these little things where I'm reading something and I call them the blur outs. So I just suddenly get blurred. So if I can't fake it as a long inflection or pause, you'll know that I'm just trying to get my bearings. Okay. So this book is super special to me, and it's about my brother Cliff, who died when he was just 59 of Parkinson's. But I do want to say that he definitely had it very early, and his trajectory, was his own, and everybody's path with Parkinson's is different. So, this is his story, but it doesn't mean that it's true for everybody. Some people just suffer with more tremors for many years, but this was his story, which was particularly difficult. And it was my honor to help with my sisters to help him in the last months of his life. So I'm going to look at my clock on with the glasses, and then we'll see how I do. Let's see, I have to do one more thing. But again, I'm just thrilled that all of you are here today. Okay, this is the first poem in the book, Underwater. At swim lessons in the community pool, we clung to the same ledge, kicking our feet, listening intently to our instructor while elbowing each other under the water. I watched the teacher. I watched her so intently that when I looked over to my right, you were suddenly submerged. I didn't understand until then what it meant to come close to drowning. I saw your face, and maybe you saw mine. You sank lower and lower until a swift hand plunged in and pulled you out of those chlorinated depths. You came out sputtering. We never spoke of it after that. I didn't think of it too much until today, until I signed into the front desk of the nursing facility, until I poked my head into your room and watched the way the Parkinson pulls you under. I sit by your bedside. This time my whole self plunges in. This time we both hang on. There's a stage in all diseases where people are kind of searching for causes and cures and reasons. This one's called searching. Scientists search for a cause. All I can do is comb the literature like a student cramming for exams. Try to map the way back to your first symptom. How can we know what decisions a body will make for us? How can we know how long a mutation will keep a secret? How can we know where your mind is when you no longer speak? All I can do is hold on to the memory of your hand in mine when we first went to Sunday school and believed in everything. Cliff was he was the youngest, and he was just a year apart from me. We're all a year apart. This next poem, Parkinson's, is kind of a glossary of words that you become familiar with when somebody in your family is really sick. And there's always this sterility to it, where the way the medical staff explains it to you. And then there's the way that it is in the emotional part of it. So this addresses that. Separate the pages here. Parkinson's glossary. Ataxia, a movement disorder marked by loss of balance. You fell again today. Dementia, a decline in memory of intellectual functioning. Friends ask, isn't he too young for that? Facial masking, the face is immobile with reduced blinking. I wonder what you are thinking. I hope you can hear me. Hypokinesia, slow or diminished movement. I try to move slowly with you like when we practice for the 7th grade dance. Rigidity, abnormal stiffness in a limb or other body part. I tell you to remember how you felt when you rode your bike every weekend. He was an avid bike rider. Dopamine antagonists, a class of drugs commonly prescribed in Parkinson's disease that bind to dopamine receptors and mimic dopamine's actions in the brain. You've been given everything that can be given, the doctors say. End of life care. Care given to people who are near the end of life and have stopped treatment to cure or control their disease. You, a bed, and music you used to love. Music was a big thing at the end because that was one of our, couldn't talk. And I always played that Jim Croce song, I Have to Say I Love You in a Song. And now, of course, I can't listen to that song without crying. He had something called orthostatic hypotension. And what it means is that when he stood up, his blood pressure dropped very suddenly, which was very dangerous. This is another kind of journey into the technical language. Orthostatic hypotension. When you sit or stand up, your blood pressure plummets. But every day you fight to get up, you don't care what the nurses say. I have to get out of here. You repeat over and over and then pull off the bed sheets and start to rise. I try all my stay in bed tricks I used when my children were young. But there is no story or fairy tale I could read to you that will ease this cerebral storm. You continue the fight until I say, you will get out of here eventually, and then immediately I feel guilty for the lie. How many ways can someone fall off the ledge of themselves? Now that you are finally asleep, I stand here in the doorway watching for signs of impending rock slides, keeping an eye out for the first loose pebble. In the beginning of his kind of end of life care, he was very, very much wanting to get up, and it was a very difficult thing to keep him in the bed as he was supposed to be. So I have a son who has profound autism, as many of you know. And for that whole time on Saturdays, I would drive between the 2 group homes to see my son, who's 37 now, and then to see Thomas, and to see my brother Cliff. So this is a poem about that journey. I'm going to switch to my I don't like that either. I'm going to go to this. I'll use that if I have to. 2 miles apart. I drive between the 2 places, ignoring the gas gauge and the narrowing roads. My son in one group home and my brother in another. My son has never spoken. Autism took his language decades ago. My brother's voice fades away like a church bell in the distance. I stop at a park along the way, the grass tamped down from a kid's bike, small signs of loss in its insidious tracks. I will bring my brother good food and music he likes, but he will turn away once the hospice nurse arrives. I will bring my son a Coke with extra ice and he will drink it all in a few minutes. Each time I visit, I hurry through each yellow light, knowing there isn't enough time. But I make my way between these two quiet countries, finding tranquil roads with low-hanging trees and small, silent creatures that show me the way. Let's see how much time I have. This one's called Bedside. Lots of hours at the bedside. There's a lot of things that you do that they tell you that you read about. So you start counting respiration rates, and at some point you realize some of it's just pointless, but you're just trying to kind of find a way to get through it. Bedside. I don't count your respirations per minute any longer. I don't look at the little blue hospice book that spells out the shades of your illness. An ending is an ending no matter how many minutes drip by. It's the middle of the week. I put on my N95 mask and sit close to you. I turn on the same soft piano music and the notes float above the absence of our conversation. I read that dementia patients hold on to old memories, so I enter the realm of 50 years ago and take you with me. I talk about the tadpoles we used to find, the dinosaur trails we made in the dirt in the backyard, and about G.I. Joe when dying was only pretend. Cliff's hallucinations were one of the hardest parts of the caretaking to help him feel safe. And at some point, everything was kind of like potentially hallucinations. I bought you a new blanket this week. I thought you'd like the rectangle patterns in a soft brown. But a few days later, you are terrified of everything. Even the blanket is calling your name. I sit by your bed and make sure you know those footsteps down the hall are not coming for you, that the curtains are not a shadow self. I hold your hand and tell you I'm here and won't let anything hurt you. Soon we can only put white sheets on the bed. The terror of patterns barges through the front door of your dementia. I want to cradle your brain in my hands. I want to stand at the gateway of your disease and make sure its glare never makes eye contact. 2 weeks later, we take down all the photos on the wall you used to love, which is very sad. Towards the end, Cliff got something called contracture, with some people with cerebral palsy have, but also with Parkinson's, where their muscles become fixed and tight, and it's actually very painful. This poem entitled Contracture, and the definition is a fixed tightening of the muscles, tendons, ligaments, or skin. It prevents normal movement of the associated body part. This was like all over. The nurse increased the dose of your fentanyl patch today. It will take up to 48 hours to take effect. In the meantime, you continue with breakthrough doses of morphine. I think about the small gathering of trees outside your window. I wonder if at dusk they secretly tell you how to keep your limbs intact and yet learn to bend with the wind. You know how you kind of like go to these places, you start to associate like the trees, they become like this part of the whole landscape that you associate to what happened. So I make the most amazing lasagna ever. Not that I'm not going to brag about it, but I really do make good lasagna. And I feel really, and actually they even know, like at Jake's school, they're like, oh, Jake's grandma made lasagna. So I bring it around to all these people that I love in town. But it was the only thing at the end of Cliff's life before he stopped eating that he would eat. So, and it really just such a good reminder that food is history and love and ancestry and meaning. And so this is my poem about Italian food. Italian food. All through your illness, I make you lasagna. Sometimes I stay up late making sure the sauce is perfect. Sometimes I boil the noodles a little longer than I should. I don't measure the thyme or sage or garlic. I let our heritage show me the way. I use 4 kinds of cheese and think of you in each layer. Your caretaker tells me he will only eat your food now. I bring you pasta on weekends and Wednesdays or whenever you're close to running out. I believed for a while I could keep you alive that way. But we all know your doctor gave you at most 6 months. The day you stop eating, I am at the grocery store buying ingredients. I leave abruptly and watch the day devour itself. Your disease is a glutton who can't consume enough of you. This is nearing towards the end, and this is another one about a term called Cheyne-Stokes breathing, which now, of course, I'll never forget. It's amazing how much we just ignore, like when we breathe, it's like just normal. But then when somebody's life is nearing an end, you watch a lot more closely. Respiration explained. The hospice nurse gives it a name, Cheyne-Stokes breathing, an abnormal breathing pattern where the patient has fast, shallow breaths and then deep, heavy ones. She explains it's the body's way of trying to correct itself when everything is shutting down. For days, we watch you fall in and out of the cadence of endings. The nurse says it's not painful, but it's hard for me to believe as I watch you fall in and out of the broken metronome of this fatal disease. I say your name quietly several times an hour, and although you don't respond, I remind myself that the literature says they can hear you even when they are unconscious. I remind you of all the times we collected daddy long-legged spiders, how at times you held them in your hand, each one pushing up against an unknown surface, as we all do. In the middle of the book, I'm going to see if I can show you this. It might be kind of hard to show, but I wanted to mark the spot where his passing was. So it says, this page left intentionally blank to mark the moment of your passing. So that's how it looks, if you can see it. So it's like a marker when he passed. It was 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning. And then this is kind of one in the aftermath stage. It's been 1 week. It's been 1 week since you died. And so it begins the counting, the months, days, and years without a brother. As if the counting can contain the loss. As if somehow it helps me measure the immeasurable. I walk in my neighborhood, and although you never walked these streets with me, they seem somehow emptier, or my footsteps are heavier. I'm not sure which. I only know that 1 year minus a week is 51 weeks. Maybe soon I will rely on integers, numbers not divisible of themselves, to understand how to let you go. Until then, the dust waits for me. After the dog is finally asleep, I flick on the bedroom lamp and find the secret abacus under my bed, slowly teaching me how to count myself backwards to you. This one's just like a general poem about sorrow, but I included it because I think it's just perfect for how we carry sorrow with us all over. How to dust the sorrow from your room. Start with the ceiling. It's hiding there and will fall to the ground if you nudge it. It's not under the bed or the old lamp. It's the place you never look, where your old shoes are stacked. It's in the tracks of a sliding door. It's at the edge of a dresser. It's where your memories sift through when you fall asleep. Wait until the house is as dark as the closet of your body. Slowly sweep with the bristles of your hands and find everything you detest and make it holy again. I think it's one of the bravest things we can do is grieve. It's very painful. A lot of times people self-medicate or do all these things, but we just really need to go through it. So I have about 3 more. I think I have time, Malika, yes? Yeah, okay. So my brother and I probably fought the most. I mean, I don't know about that, but we fought a lot. He was 1 year younger. We were very competitive. So there was like a lot of the Monopoly games where the parts were up in the air, and but we also played chess, and I wasn't a very good sport either. To be honest, if you ask my husband, don't ask him. I'm still not a very good sport, but that's here and over there. So this is a poem about the last time that when we were teenagers, when we played chess. The last time we played chess, I threw a rook at you before I stomped out of the room. We were teenagers. Now that you are gone, I can't stop thinking about your quiet approach, placing each pawn out one by one. I watched your fingers lightly touch the chess pieces, showing how you understood the intricate balance and the power of the board. I think of your fingers in the last year of your life, clinging to the bed rails, how I placed your hands gently on your blanket after you'd gone to sleep. How could we have known then that death had its own strategy? How could I have known how regret jumps over everything else like the knights on the board? I no longer play the game. I am no longer willing to glue together broken bishops and bereft kings. I fold the chessboard the way I sometimes close a book before it's over, dog-earing the pages as if I'll remember the way back. Okay, so that would be two more. This is a short one. So yeah, my brother was an amazing biker, and he was so athletic. That was one of the most kind of tragic parts, was to have him lose that. And he rode up to this mountain, which most of you are from North Carolina, but called Mount Diablo, which is really a huge mountain. A lot, he did it. At last, summer has found me. I'm supposed to be healing. I'm supposed to be doing self-care. I'm supposed to go back to the routines I had before hospice. Instead, I'm driving up the hill where you used to ride your bike, finding all of the small vista points where you must have stopped for a long drink of water. And this next one, I always try to end my collections on some sort of a redemptive note. I think that's important. But a little bit after Cliff died, there was a robin redbreast that made a nest on this little potting plant right outside my bedroom window. And just a sidebar for a minute, my sister Paula, who's a wildlife expert, said that they will probably come back every year, and they have. So they're back in the same, we have another nest going now. Feels really cycle of life good. So this one's called Robin Redbreast. All through your illness, I wake to the sound of birds. I ignore them. I don't care about the type, kind, species, or if they are far or near. I just get dressed and drive to see you. 2 months after you die, a redbreast robin makes a nest in the hanging plant just outside my bedroom window. I watch her carefully. I go to the window countless times a day and make sure everything is okay. I worry at night about the eggs and if they will still be there in the morning. I read grief books. I watch mindfulness videos. Nothing helps. It's a Sunday in June. I watch her until noon, and she stares ahead doing her silent work. I see now how someone comes back to you, oftentimes in a small shelter just beyond your reach. Thank you.
Good Lord,
Thank you.
Connie, that is gorgeous. Ooh, people want
My
to
brother.
please do. And we can take
Thank
a
you.
moment just to say thank you and to clap.
Beautiful, Connie.
Thank you, guys.
A very,
Wow.
very powerful, very poignant.
I just got a text yesterday from the hospice nurse who said that she read it and the whole office did, and that they really loved it. So, and it's good because you don't know how professionals will experience it, and so that was good to know.
Poetry exists in many ways. I mean, it exists in the silent reading with your book and the page, but it's wonderful, having read your book several times, to actually hear you read it in your voice. It's a whole new dimension.
Thank you, David. David's a dear friend from a bazillion years, and he did when he was the top. He blurbed my book, so I was very honored to have him do that.
What was remarkable about it was that even though it was about your brother and Parkinson, I felt like you were speaking to anyone who sat with the dying, and it was
I know you, yeah.
remarkably, it was eloquent and right on. I mean, not a false note.
Thank you, Amy. Amy, that really means a lot for me. Coming from you.
I'll second the not a false note. It was so true. So true.
I'm thinking, I feel like, first I think I know it's about Parkinson's specifically, but I really think it's more about end of life care. And so I'm kind of hoping to get it out there more in the hospice world, because I think that we need to know we're not alone with all these scary and sad things. Yeah.
When I got the book, I couldn't put it down. I just sat and read the whole thing all at once. It's very moving. And
Thank you, Donna.
for anybody that's with someone who has Parkinson's or dementia, or I have a friend who has Lewy body dementia, and as I read the book, I just, I could shake my head. Yes, it was.
Yeah, you mentioned that too.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book, honey.
Thank you, Donna. I need to mention that one of my favorite things is when Donna, I just love her, but when she buys one of my books, she posts this thing on Facebook and the book's like always like in the crook of her legs with her
Yeah.
little sandals. It's one of my favorite things is when you do that.
That's awesome.
But I also feel like I must have had another life in North Carolina because I have so many friends, poet friends in North Carolina. It's uncanny.
We totally claim you here in North Carolina.
I know
I'm
you
sorry.
can claim me.
We
That's right.
share you with California, wherever else, but yeah.
Coast to
You know
coast.
what? The universality of that, loss and grief, and also several poems kind of reminded me of the, just the inevitability and the breath being unnoticed until it's not, and just
Yeah,
how that feels to hit that place of inevitability of loss, and how love and grief are so mixed, and yes, the beauty of that final poem.
Thomas's disability, because he never talked, really kind of helped train me to deal with what happened with Cliff, because you just have to get used to the nonverbal part. It's weird because with Thomas, who never talked, we've learned to adapt in a nonverbal world. He wants something, he gets my hand or whatever. But with Cliff, he lost his language and he could think that we could hear him and his lips were moving. He was really frustrated. So it was more frustrating with him because he lost his language, but didn't know that we couldn't hear him. And it affects the vocal cords a lot too. So that was really and we tried all these different communication modalities, which didn't really work, which is weird because it didn't work with Thomas either. We tried kind of all the things, but it's weird how some experiences in your life prepare you for others, but you don't know they're preparing you for it.
No, there's not a context until there is.
Yeah.
I was going to mention something about our brother. Cliff, there's 4 sisters and my brother, and he's the youngest. And as Connie mentioned, we're all really close in age, like about a year apart.
Yeah.
Maybe I think the most is a year and 2 months. And so I'm the oldest. Diane, who lives in Tucson, who's a neuroscientist, is this next. Then it's Stephanie and Connie, and then Cliff. And Cliff was a really funny guy. I mean, he had a incredible dry sense of humor, and he was just really funny to be around. And so and we each had our own individual relationship with him, but he, we were all the sisters and very protective of him. And so when he was really sick, we were all doing kind of rotating times with him. Connie lived the closest, but we spent individually and collectively a lot of time with him. And there were just times when, even pushing through a lot of his suffering, we could get him to do something that made us laugh. And he did have Cliff had a really funny thing. I have pictures of him from when he was a teenager, but he would lift his one eyebrow up and in just sort of this funny expression, like, really, kind of stuff. And when people have Parkinson's, it's very hard for them to do their expressions and stuff.
Yeah.
But he was in a nursing home, skilled nursing, for a little while before he went to the group home. And he was very anxious there and very nervous. And so we were constantly trying to distract him. So I said, Cliff, do that thing with your eyebrow. and he kind of got a little smirk on his face, and he went for it and he did it. And I got a picture of it. It was really fun and we all laughed. But it's these little things that, you can interact with them on, and these priceless little moments that were really important, that we each individually as the sisters had with him, and then collectively we also saw things. So while it was a horribly difficult time, and it continues to be very difficult, we have a lot of beautiful, funny moments, memories of Cliff, and we all hold him with us each day in different ways. So
yeah, that's really good. That's a really good way to say it. How these little moments become frozen, or little, like, even the fighting that, when you're a kid, you don't like it, but like, it's funny later when you just look at some of the stupid fights we used to have, the very sibling fights, throwing a toad on each other, whatever, all the stupid things that you fight about when you're a kid.
Does anybody have a specific question? I did want to ask about how did y'all create the cover? Did you kind of, how did y'all work on that together?
Okay, hey, Paula, unmute. So I approached Paula and I think that, well, I knew I wanted to, let's just say, I think I knew I wanted a metronome in there, but of course it had to be broken. But this interesting conversation was like, well, how broken do you want it? Like completely smithereens, partly broken, slightly cracked. I mean, every little part had to be kind of, but, and Paula has done a lot of commissioned work. So she said, just realize that I don't get too bent out of shape if you're going to want to change things.
Yeah.
And then, I'll kind of let Paula take that part from there because most of the rest of this was like in this picture right here. There was like a bench, I think, and the sister and brother, but I asked her to take that part out. But this picture right here, I'm so in love with this and how it picks up on the metronome. But I'll let Paula talk about the rest, as long as you have to say nice things about. She was the greatest to work with.
No, we had a great time
Yeah.
working on it. Connie had some ideas and I did a series of sketches. And then based on the back and forth on that, some things she thought she liked, but then when we sketched it out, it was like, nah, I don't think I like it. I came up with a couple of other ideas. She liked one of the ideas, and then I took that into doing sort of a draft watercolor painting of it. And from there, we made a couple more little changes, and then I painted it on a acrylic on a panel. And based on that final sort of agreement on what she liked, but we talked a lot about how, the colors and how bright do you want this or that. So kind of did a lot of fun back and forth, and it worked out great.
I did. And I like the whole idea of thumbnails because you don't want them to put this whole thing into it, and you kind of decide on a general scaffolding of what it's going to be. And it's kind of like everything I hope that it would be, So
I think it's lovely that, that collaboration is part of the whole.
well, some
experience.
publishers, they just decide what the cover is and you have to live with it. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories where like, I really, we've talked about this before, but I really don't like my cover, but my publisher said, this is what we're picking. So, it's really a wonderful thing to be able to work with somebody that actually does, you can work together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any questions? Connie, there's a whole bunch of things in the chat section.
Yeah, so lots
of
of it.
course, I'll be sending it to you so that you
Yes,
can,
of course. Yeah.
yeah.
But Stephanie, my sister down there below with the purple shirt on, I'm going to violate her introverted self bubble just for a moment. But she lives next close. So we were together a lot at the bedside. Yeah.
Did you share the poems as you were writing them, or?
No, I waited till the end.
That's what I
And I didn't really even know. I mean, I'd written some while he was dying, but I was kind of I'd written about maybe 8 or 10. And then after that, I was in this, that's kind of not like me, but I was kind of more of a frozen grief state. I just couldn't do it. I started writing like like a maniac all the time. And then I thought maybe at some point it was going to be a chapbook. And I was so glad when Glassliar accepted it.
Yeah,
I didn't want it to take the 5-year trajectory of books where you have to wait to get rejected a zillion times. And then then they say your publication date is in 2050. like I'm just really glad that they accepted it. They said that we're going to put it out on the next run. And so it's like, because it's time appropriate, you don't want it to be too far from when it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stephanie, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, unlike Connie, I'm much more, we're quite opposite, but we get along great. But I'm much less likely to delve into grief as deeply as I say Connie is as deep as the Meridian Trench. I always say that. She's very deep. And it took me a while to even be able to read it. Because for me, I was very close to my brother growing up, and even, it was just really, really hard. So, I mean, it was hard for all of us. I'm not saying there's no comparison, but I'm just saying that I agree with, there was a comment there that said Connie's very strong, and she has that. I agree. She has no resistance to jump into this hard stuff. And I would say I'm less like that, but she helps me with that. So,
Well, and even
that's
my
always
daughter,
good.
she's like, what? When she was growing up as a teenager and as she was going through this whole divorce thing, and I would listen to this really sad song, and she goes, why? And we would call, she goes, why are you freebasing with grief? I'm like, because it's in there. You just have to pop it. You have to get it out. It's just part of our life experience. She's like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. But everybody
That's great.
copes with yeah. You know, because it's like, and even Kevin, my husband, he's like, why are you listening to this song? Because I feel a little sad and I think it just needs to get out there. And I have my thing and then I can go on. But yeah. But we all cope with grief differently. But it was really weird for me after he died, because usually I just felt a little bit more numb than I thought I would, but the poems helped me get to it.
Mm.
Yeah, thank you, Connie, and Paula both. It's beautiful and a great testament
His life, yeah.
for him.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And he knew how much he was loved. He did.
That's really amazing. Well, I'm so happy to have had the sisters here as well, and to hear the backstory with the cover. Connie, thank you so very much. We like that you're a deep diver.
I'm a deep
And,
diver. Kevin goes, my husband goes down Periscope. I'm like, "Do I have a question for you?" He goes, I go, I have a hypothetical. He goes, I hate your hypotheticals. I'm like, no, I want to ask you a question.
Awesome. My brother has something when a conversation gets tense, he goes, dive.
Dive. So this is one of our funniest things in me and Kevin's marriage. So he's pretty deep for a guy. I don't mean that in a critical way, but he is. But then we were at this party and this friend goes, God, have you seen Kevin's poems? And he goes, he's really deep. And he looks at me and he goes, I'm a wading pool compared to her.
Oh, waiting.
So we say that all the time. I'm a wading pool.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for celebrating with us.
Thank you, Malika. I wouldn't
One
be
more
the
thing
same
to
book launch
say.
if you didn't have me. So thank you so much.
Nice to meet you all. Okay.
Broken Metronome. We're gonna head into open mic, and I'm just gonna go in the order that I wrote it down because that's the only way I know how to do it. Lindsay,
Thank you,
I'm coming
everybody.
to you.
And I can't wait to hear your poems. So let's get into it.
Awesome. I'm going to Lindsay first, and I'm gonna spotlight you.
Oh,
Who she be spotlighted?
I've been cleaning my house. I look horrid.
No, you don't.
Gorgeous.
Connie, thanks. That was wonderful.
Oh, thank
and
you.
Really moving. And I appreciate your sharing your story like that. I'm
And I
reading.
appreciate that we've both been through some big griefs together. So at the kind of, similar time frame. So yeah.
Yes, it's true. Anyway, thank you so much. I'm reading from the book of John. I'm going to read one of the first poems in the book. Just a little background. My husband, John, died at 56 from stomach cancer, and it was pretty brutal. They found out and he went downhill fairly quickly. This poem was written before he passed. Portrait in half light. My husband could be anyone in this half light. I pay gentle attention to massaging his toes, the balls of his feet and his arches, the only body parts the cancer hasn't slit like the gut of a fish. I am not granted the luxury of turning back, becoming salt stone like Lot's wife. I contemplate his full mouth, no longer quick to grin, but grim on his bony, dying face. Busy leaving, his hands rant in his sleep. They twitch, strip a line, and reel in rainbows, cutthroats, browns, trout he cooks into a dream amandine. All I can manage are the tasks before me, to inspire, encourage, put locks of his hair at the feet of statues of Jesus, Brahma, Buddha. The hook that would reel him from me judders through the hours, its steel piercing hope. Chiaroscuro, the altar of the white sheet, hints the fabric is light itself, upon which his skeletal body leans into my arms, a living La Pieta. My resolve is marble, my powerlessness absolute, while his green eyes flicker open supernaturally pale, and I hinge another panel to paint a diptych of our life, one in which he gets succor, mercy, and his share of joy. I would change this narrative the way I alter lucid dreams, turn morphine into manna, transform his agony with drugs and prayer. We would nestle by a fire, dream not of exotic travels, victory, fortune, or perfect love, but of laughing at stand-up on Netflix, playing with our dogs in snow-trumped fields, my husband's steak au poivre steeping the house in peppercorn, butter, cognac. I pray for these small marvels, now extravagant and beyond John's weak reach, which cannot grip to twist out the deep-set hook that yanks him away. Against my dread, I pray for every beat of his heart to moan, holy, 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 whole, against the emergency alert blaring, against what's left of our stupid hope.
Ooh,
Thank you.
that's gonna take me a minute. Lindsay, that was gorgeous. I just.
Thank you.
There are so many comments in the chat. I know, right, Amy? I feel that. Thank you so much for reading one, and I'm gonna reach out to you about celebrating the entire book at some point. That's just.
Oh, thank
I
you.
would love to do that. Yeah, our stupid, I know, Julian, that's got me wiped out. Our stupid hope. Ooh. All
Well,
right.
I really appreciate the comments and things. Thank you.
Thank you for writing. Really, both you and Connie, this is just oh boy, I'm out. Thank y'all. Chrissy, I'm coming to you next, honey.
Okay, so I'm not going to help much with the happiness here tonight, I guess, but you guys that know me know I lost my daddy, and so it's been very helpful to write. And this is one of the poems where I realized he was preparing me a long time ago as a person with a disability to be able to do this when he was gone. So this is my first attempt at one of these poems, and it was published by Does It Have Pockets in July. My daddy taught me to save myself. He told me one day my breath will stop. You won't have to hold yourself up alone. I understood. My limp legs trailed behind me like ribbons. I would have to train my arms to burn carpet, speed through my commando crawl. Friday nights were for living room sleeping bags, pizzas, and a movie. The MGM line roared, my stomach stormed. Even before Mrs. Gulch warned me. Asleep before everyone was safe, I woke in darkness, searching for sovereign hands, trusted more than my own. His right hand sagged on the floor. My small fingers dug in. Still, his chest did not rise. I flipped on my belly, turned my body towards salvation, and heaved. Red shag fibers soon dotted blue-gray linoleum. Moonlight shone on the long white spiral cord, waiting to release my voice. I hooked a left-handed digit between spirals, begged my chicken-winged right arm to canopy my skull as the receiver plummeted from its base station. A bleeding dial tone cried operator. I watched seconds bounce in the echo until his shadow swallowed them whole. He told me, my breath hasn't yet stopped, but you have held yourself up alone. Thank you.
Oh, Christy. Thank you for reading it. Gorgeous. And I know that was hard. Your daddy'd be so proud. He would take her to every single poetry reading. And I can't say that was his number one thing to do, but he loved hearing Christy read. Amy, I'm coming to you.
It was definitely not his favorite. Except for you, Marty, and me.
Oh, I felt grateful to have him do that. Amy, I'm coming to you.
Yeah, so I'm going to change the subject a little. As you know, I have a chapbook, One Day in the Field, about grief. And but I'm starting to write some new things. And I'm actually I forgot this is going to be recorded because I'm reading something very new and in progress.
Would you like me to pause the recording if you don't want? It's if you're still sending it out and you're worried about that, I
No,
have.
it's okay. It's
Okay.
okay. It's still
Just
in
wanna make sure.
progress. You know,
Okay.
it's fine. It is off the subject, and I anyway. Dear body. Oh, it's a prose piece, which I usually don't do. I'm mostly lyric. Dear body, I've spent my life fixated on your flaws, wishing you were someone else, delicate and disarming as spider's silk. Others viewed us as porcupined. It was not fury, but fear that forced me to quill you. Nearly passed down those sorrow-pointed swords to my daughter, self-doubt always hungry for a new home. Now you hand me a damaged heart. A heart does not need to hide forbidden candy, does not need to consume the world in one sitting, does not compare the width of skinny legs to the span of a butt. Our heart, the size of two clenched fists, needs only to beat. Oh, body, is it too late to say I love you? Remember, and how can we forget those rebellious breast cells, how at first I longed to ignore them. You wouldn't let me. I welcomed in toxic warriors to quash the disease. We were both grateful. Our hearts sang, yes, sang. This weakened but stubborn heart. And our bodies almost 60,000 miles of blood vessels. How we follow that trail, we could cross the world twice. Unless, of course, we stop somewhere, having never seen a beach like this or trees like that. And then we would come home, wouldn't we? Thanks.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you.
That line, is it too late to say I love you? Ah,
Thank you.
yes. This is, once again, our open mics are always such fire. Marjorie, I'm
But
coming
mics
to
are friggin'
you.
amazing. They're amazing.
Right? Every single time I go, holy crap.
Did you say me?
Just, I mean, stunning. And we are with you, Marjorie.
My internet seems to be a little bit unstable. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're good.
Yes, okay. Okay, I'm gonna read the first poem in this book, Local News from Someplace Else, which is really about living in an unsafe world. And the story behind this is I got a postcard from a friend from grad school. I hadn't seen her for a while. And the postcard simply said, very matter-of-factly, summer is going quickly. We are very busy. My brother and his family all died in a plane crash. Hope to see you soon when we fly that way. And I was just shocked at how she kind of slipped this tragedy into this prose. So I won't read that part again, but the postcard. What we scrunch on a 3x5 wants happiness, as bland as the heat waving at us from beneath its sunglasses and umbrella. Simplicity so boring, we relax in it, order another drink. But somewhere between the Eiffel Tower and Empire State Building, between your misuse and wish you were here's, fact slips in, inked lightning across skies as bright as a Las Vegas smile. In a postcard of Sunset Strip, amidst a list of Hollywood celebrities, the plane was the same as JFK Jr.'s, and on the backside of the tomb of the unknown soldier, the memorial service was short. All summer, I listened for clouds cracking open with you, your brief alphabet of grief swooping in from the skies with the late morning mail. There is room here to land in the ordinary, a clearing for what is missing. I'm waiting to hear from Madrid, from Tokyo and Madagascar, where loss, I've read, flies fastest in the smallest of words.
Holy smokes.
Thanks.
That's an ending. Woof.
Yeah, I mean, right? Talk about like just landing the ending so completely. David, I'm coming to you next, and then on to Julian. Let's see, there we go.
I'm going to read a way back when poem from my first collection, Counterpoint, back in 1994. It was reprinted by Redheaded Press in 2020. And it's about my Aunt Rebecca, who spent her last years in a nursing home in Florida, pretty much isolated. My mother and father lived close by, and they would visit her. And my brother and I, when we visited my parents, would always visit Aunt Rebecca. And this is about my last visit. The poem is entitled At the World's End, in memory of Rebecca Ross Alport. Once again, I have made it to this one-story building in Florida and have found my way beyond the Cuban guard at the front desk, watching a rerun of Fantasy Island, and the candy striper coaxing a wobbly old man into an aluminum walker to the little corner room at the world's end, and Aunt Rebecca one more time. Once again, she shows me photographs of people who were part of my childhood and people I've heard about but never seen. How pretty she was in pigtails, how proud at her 8th grade graduation, how healthy on the day she married Uncle Walter. And there's a middle to reflect on here at the world's end, though she doesn't bring the photos out today. And the beginning of the ends in a shoebox under her bed. Retirement years, full of oranges and lemons, uneventful, free of snow. There are no recent photographs. No one wants to look at Aunt Rebecca's leg with the tight, shiny skin and pools of purple blood, or dwell too long on, or try to image up the leg already claimed by diabetes. Or admire the candor with which these legs chide the legs in the photo on the wall when she posed on the boardwalk at Atlantic City. These are hers, they are now. Even the missing one is hers now. There is not much to do here at the world's end. This is a place where it can take all morning to cut your toenails, where a crossword can take days to finish under a magnifying glass. We sit, we embrace, we remember Aunt Alice, we remember the house in Newmarket and the farm in Hunterdon County, now a busy shopping mall, but there's not much to say here at the world's end. It seems more natural to stare at the walls or look out the window at the birds. This is not a good place for words.
Wow, this is not a good place for words. Something about your poem made me really, it's the details that everybody has brought to life in these poems that I think, have such pull for me. And there's this beautiful sense of traveling in the past, but there's an acute awareness of the present moment, even as we travel. That is just really powerful. Thank y'all so very much. Thank you, David. Julian, I'm coming to you for our last open mic.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okie doke. Well, I'm going to change the subject again, and I'm going to read a poem that I wrote a good many years ago that I took as the title of of this book of mine, which is called Reading Evening Prayer in an Empty Church. It was published in a little magazine called Windhover in Texas back in the, early 1990s, sometime, maybe late 80s. I tend to forget things like that now. It's called Reading Evening Prayer in an Empty Church. Oh, I used to do this as a church member. I would go to my church and read the service of evening prayer once a week. It's good to be here, Lord, even if you're not, even if all that's behind the crucifix is the Eastern Wall. Chrysostom says it takes two. I'm never sure that angel on the back bench knows anything, sitting there with his big square wings folded, reading the editorials. I've seen his kind streak across the sky now and again, bound for races or baseball. Thrown a few high thoughts their way, but I don't really want their life. Not that here is an easy place. My clothes are too tight. I worry. Sometimes I get depressed. But what if I stopped in this place just to get my messages? This here, this room into which I speak, is quite enough height for me. And maybe someday we'll all of us get the message. Home. This is home with its not very permanent light. Here or nowhere, me or nobody. It's well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Boy, I love that with this not very permanent light. Oh, it's just so beautiful. Not that here is an easy place. Yeah, feeling that. But I'll tell you, the sense of I don't know, the gift of being able to write ourselves through things and to each other and to our deep selves is what's really, really evident in everything that was read today.
Yes.
And certainly most especially in Connie's book.
Yes.
I just want to thank y'all so very much. It was so good to be in your good
Such
company.
a
and
great
Connie.
time. Now I get to be with all of you. Thank you so much for being here and for all your beautiful brief poems.
Awesome. Gorgeous guys.
and
Be well. Yes, Lindsay.
thanks to everybody. I wanted to say thank you. And I really enjoyed everybody's poems, and Connie especially, thank you for your
Thank you,
beautiful
Lindsay.
reading.
Thank you. Thanks. You're
Thank
close
y'all
to my
so
heart,
much.
so many of you.
And I will be in touch, Lindsay and Marjorie. We're celebrating soon. So woo.
Is yours next week, Marjorie? Yeah. I think I'm open then, so good.
Yay. All right, guys. Good to be
All right.
back on a Thursday.
Love to all. Thank you.
Well.